Cesic Buinova. On April 7, 2024, the Mrs. Buryatia Beauty Contest took place in Ulan-Ude, Republic of Buryatia, Russia. Among the participants was 30-year-old Cesic Buinova, a mother of two, who was awarded the title of Mrs. Top Model. Her rise to national fame was swift, and just as suddenly, she vanished. Merely 4 days after the event, Cesic disappeared without a trace, and for the next 4 months, there were no signs of her. Investigators, family members, and concerned members of the public have exhausted themselves trying to locate her. Yet the deeper the investigation delves, the more unsettling and puzzling it becomes. Her disappearance has sparked a host of theories and chilling speculation. Today, we'll attempt to unpack the mystery surrounding this case and explore what may have happened to the beauty queen from eastern Siberia. The enigma began on April 11th, when Cesic phoned her husband Boris, who was away on a work trip, to ask him to send money for groceries. After that call, she told her husband she would be spending the evening doing housework. He believed her, but she had other plans. That night, Cesic decided to make some extra money. She occasionally worked as a part-time taxi driver using her Mitsubishi Outlander. While this side job brought an additional income, it was never quite enough. Her husband disapproved of her driving strangers around, especially late at night. Still, Cesic reassured him that she was safe and there was nothing to worry about. At around 8 p.m., she left home, and by about 9:30 p.m., she had finished a fare. Around 10 p.m., she met up with some friends for a quick coffee. After a brief chat, everyone went their separate ways. Cesic told them she was heading home to her kids. She even called her sons to let them know she'd be back soon. But those would be her last words to them. She never made it home. Instead of heading home, Cesic drove to the Absolute Shopping Center, where a young man entered her vehicle. Surveillance footage shows the two remained in the car for about an hour. After some time, a third individual joined them. The car then left the parking lot and headed toward the area known as the 100th block. From that point on, Cesic never returned home. Later, it was revealed that a man named Stanislav Norboev had gone missing along with her. The beautiful Cesic, full name Darmieva Cesic Balzanimayevna, was born on July 8th. Before I continue, I want to remind you that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let's move on with the video. 1993, in the small village of Tasher, located in the Selenjinsky district of the Republic of Buryatia. Little is publicly known about her early years, but one thing is clear. She was an energetic and driven child. She loved dancing and was especially passionate about sports, with volleyball being her favorite. This sport helped instill in her a strong sense of discipline and a competitive spirit. After completing her secondary education, Cesic moved to the capital, where she enrolled at Buryat State University. In 2015, Cesic successfully graduated from university. Demonstrating a strong entrepreneurial spirit, she soon registered as a sole proprietor and began working as a lash extension specialist. Advertisements for her beauty services can still be found online, where she invited clients to book appointments. After researching profitable business avenues, Cesic took another step forward in December 2022 by opening a children's clothing store. In addition to running her business, she occasionally worked as a private taxi driver during her free time. Her personal life was equally open and well documented. Cesic frequently shared significant life moments on social media. During her university years, she married and took the surname Buinova. The couple had 2 sons, Kirill and Alexander, who turned 9 and 8 years old in 2024. Known for her warmth and devotion, Cesic was a loving and attentive mother. Her husband, Boris, appeared rarely in shared photos, possibly due to a preference for staying out of the spotlight. According to the most recent details, Boris worked for an organization tasked with capturing stray dogs and had previously served in law enforcement. He was generally well regarded, with many speaking positively about him. He appeared to be a supportive and loving partner, and it's said that the couple never argued, at least not publicly. In her social media posts, Cesic often shared her travels to places like Moscow, St. Petersburg, Turkey, Thailand, and Cuba, accompanied by vibrant photos. She enjoyed dressing fashionably, taking care of her appearance, going to the gym, and socializing. Seseg was frequently seen at local restaurants, clubs, and karaoke bars, though she always conducted herself with poise. She simply appreciated the glamour and style of an active social life. Always polished and camera-ready, she had a strong sense of personal presentation, favoring trendy outfits, flawless makeup, and frequent professional photo shoots. Eventually, she decided to compete in a national beauty pageant. After easily passing the preliminary round, she earned a spot among the official contestants. During the 2-month preparation, she shared everything in her account, covering, so to speak, behind-the-scenes secrets, masterclasses, trainings, and so on. Finally, on April 7th, the final of the contest took place. On the stage, the contestant tried to show herself and her talent as much as possible. She even fulfilled a childhood dream by singing in front of a large audience. "I am my family, my husband, and my children, my relatives who are always near and support me in all endeavors. I rejoice in life every new day and believe that each of us should be happy and fill this life with bright emotions. For me, happiness is my family. Every day they give me new emotions, smiles, their love and warmth," Cece confessed during her performance. According to the results of the contest, the jury unanimously awarded her the title Mrs. Top Model. Seseg expected that participation in such an event would be the beginning of her path in the modeling business. However, a few days later, she disappeared without a trace. During this time, the flowers given at the event did not even have time to wilt. First clues: the news of the beauty queen's disappearance spread quickly. The first to sound the alarm was her husband, who at that time was in Khabarovsk. On April 12th, he threw Sissa copyright G a few photos from the trip, but she did not respond. During the day, he did not hear from her. After that, he called his mother-in-law and asked her to go to their house. The village of Gorky was located on the outskirts of Ulan-Ude. As it turned out, the children were left alone, and Sissa copyright G had not been there since yesterday evening. Having heard the bad news, Boris immediately flew to Irkutsk from where he left by car. On the morning of April 14th, he was already there. By that time, Sissek's relatives reported to the police. Law enforcement officers did not hesitate and quickly organized a search operation. They were joined by volunteers from the specialized search and rescue team, LISO Alert. On the evening of April 12th, Unova was posted on social networks. While specialists were busy establishing the route of the missing woman, leaflets were distributed all over the city and information was collected. In total, more than 500 people were involved. Many places were combed: Vokmistrovo, Medvedchikov settlement, 100th micro-districts, forests, and riverbanks. However, the first clues were found on the territory of the industrial zone. Exploring the area around, volunteers noticed a mattress, and under it, men's and women's belongings. Blood stains were visible on the grass next to them. Specifically, they found a woman's black tights, a man's and woman's jacket, a t-shirt, men's underwear, and a gym bag. In the pocket of the man's jacket were keys to a Nissan car and keys to an apartment, as well as a driver's license in the name of 26-year-old Stanislav Norboev. It is noteworthy that at that time the people who found his personal belongings did not know that he had disappeared together with Sesek. None of his relatives suspected it, so Nadezhda Boldanova, Stanislav's sister, learned the terrible news about her brother, Stanislav Norboev. When the name of the young man unexpectedly surfaced in the investigation, Stanislav's mother was shocked. She said that she saw her son on the evening of April 11th. He stopped by her house to have dinner. After that, he received a phone call and left. The guy did not say who called, but he was in an upbeat mood. He said that he would go to his apartment and get some sleep. Stas's mother noted that he initially came in work clothes. However, he soon changed his clothes and hurried away. He studied well, was cheerful. He graduated from the construction faculty of the East Siberian State University of Technology and Management. He was fond of soccer, served in the army, worked by profession in the road department. "My son has always been my support," Nina Norbieva said about him. People close to him characterized him as a calm and judicious person who led a healthy lifestyle and practiced sports. He had an extensive circle of friends. In early April of this year, Stanislav moved out from his mother to a rented apartment in the 100th block. The young man justified his decision by the fact that he wanted to build a new relationship and create a family. Otherwise, he did not tell anyone about his personal life. Points of contact. It soon became clear that Stanislav Norboev and Cezek Buinova did not meet by chance. Something linked the young people, but what exactly it was is not known. Relatives of the missing decided to find out how they were connected to each other. There are two versions of the story. Ekaterina, a friend of Cezek, said that they met about a week ago in a nightclub. Before the institution closed, the man invited Cezek, who liked him, to a slow dance. After he found Cezek Buinova in social networks and started flooding her with messages, Cezek confessed to her friend that she did not exchange contacts with him. However, Stanislav was stubborn and insisted on communication. In her interview, Catherine was perplexed. He knew that she was a married woman and had children. His behavior was alarming. Moreover, later it turned out that Cezek was not the only one to whom he wrote. Other women were also found. Relatives and acquaintances hastened to dispel all doubts about Stanislav. But they made an official statement that Norboev is a good man who is not capable of kidnapping, and even worse. At the same time, another close friend claimed that Cezek and Stanislav had met much earlier. Allegedly, they often crossed paths at training sessions as they both loved volleyball. From here comes another equally popular version that between them did arise romantic feelings, about which Boris soon learned. Allegedly, Cezek's husband could not survive the treason and decided to teach the unfaithful wife a lesson. Perhaps something did not go according to plan, so instead of scaring the lovers, he killed them. Either it was originally about ruthless revenge. This theory is explained by other facts, which you will learn later. However, perhaps this is why the investigation does not trust Boris and considers him the main suspect. In his interview, the man shared that the investigative committee does not want to work with him. They do not give me any information, not even regarding the conducted examinations. Nothing. For example, they found some earring, but at the same time did not notify me, did not invite me to the identification, complained Binoff. Also, the husband of the beauty queen reported that they seized the video from his phone. According to him, if he was really involved in the case, he was already definitely sitting behind bars. Who accuses me? It's their right, their understatement. He stated, the relatives of the missing woman say with one voice that they do not believe Boris is guilty. They rely on the fact that they had a lot of plans for the future. The couple was making repairs and dreamed of a third child, a girl. It must be said that as soon as Boris returned home, he immediately began an independent search. Familiar family members are sure that Boris is trying to vilify. Another find. Along with the things on the vacant lot in the grass were also found bloodstains. Later, it turned out that they belonged to Stanislav Norboev. A few days after the investigation began, Cezek's car was found. It was parked with twisted license plates in one of the yards. The resident of the apartment building number 60 on Stalbovaya Street reported about the strange car, similar in description to the one flashed on all news channels. It was not the first day that the woman had been watching him through the window. During all this time, the owner has not shown up. Boynov, who arrived on the spot, recognized his wife's car. However, it was empty. After inspection in the cabin were found sand, dust, and a small branch, as if the car had been in nature, for example, on a vacant lot. On the windows of the Mitsubishi and the driver's door from the inside, there were visible traces of blood, and in the trunk there were removed license plates. After conducting a genetic examination, experts stated that the blood found belonged to none other than Cezek. Unfortunately, it was not possible to establish when exactly the vehicle was there. Therefore, the testimony of an eyewitness was taken as a basis. A picture of what happened. After the specialists studied the recordings from the video surveillance cameras, the picture of what happened began to emerge. At 8:52 p.m., according to the cab service, Cezek finished the last order on the route Barnaul-Skarmaverskia. At 8:57 p.m., she called her friend and proposed to meet. The women agreed to see each other near the Krona Flower Salon on Baltikanova Street. There, they got in touch with another friend and stopped by the cafe. After a friendly conversation, everyone went away. However, instead of heading home at 10:41 p.m., Buinova drove up to a shopping center located at 158 Babushkina Street. 4 minutes later, Stanislav Norboev drove up to her. After that, the man moved into a black Mitsubishi in which the young people stayed for about an hour. Then another man appeared out of nowhere. He joined them, and they drove off in an unknown direction. At 12:19 at night, street cameras recorded the Mitsubishi at the intersection of Babushkina and Ranchino streets. The vehicle was moving towards Doma Strodolnaya Street. Further, their trail disappeared. In addition, the investigators managed to establish something else. At 12:44 a.m., Saseg visited her telegram for the last time, and an hour later, her car was speeding back at breakneck speed. On April 12th at 6:28 a.m., Buenova's cell phone was fixed at 5 Sakianova Street. This address is not far from where Saseg's Mitsubishi was later found. New information. As new leads emerged, the possibility of finding the missing alive was melting before our eyes. But the main mystery, perhaps, is the identity of the third person who got into the car. Investigators are in no hurry to name him, but there are reports that he previously worked in the police. This version arose after the guards of the industrial area where the things were found earlier shed light on the ill-fated night. The drivers of passing trains noticed that around 1 a.m., there was a car in the vacant lot, and they saw a man near the railroad tracks. For safety reasons, they reported the matter to their superiors. Several guards then went to the location to investigate the situation. A man wearing a cap was driving the car. The men arrived and asked him what he was doing here. The latter replied that the car had stalled. He then showed his police identification card. When the guards decided to check the surrounding area, the car suddenly started and drove away. They later identified the vehicle in which the unknown man was sitting. It was Buenova's car. Unfortunately, they could not remember the appearance and the data given in the ID card. Employees of the industrial zone referred to the dark time of day and poor visibility. The fact that the mystery passenger was not simple was indicated by many things, including the place where the car was located. It turns out that he was standing in the blind spot from the nearest CCTV cameras. After a while, the popular show Malikov on the television channel took up the investigation of the case. In the course of it sounded different versions of what happened. In the studio were present relatives of the missing and experts. However, the most important were unique footage from CCTV cameras, which were shown for the first time. They show how a car similar to Seg's car drives into the vacant lot and stops. Then several people get out of it. Some movements resembling a fight begin. One of them falls down, the other pulls something large and long away from the car. Then the man who was pulling something gets back into the car and drives away. However, 45 minutes later, he returns again. As time passed, two unknown men approached him, and then the headlights went out and the picture disappeared. Perhaps the released video will give a new twist to the tangled case, and there will be positive developments in it. Among other things, there are plenty of oddities in the disappearance of Saseg and Stanislav. On the night of April 11th, 12, not far from where the evidence was found, outbuildings were burning. Some people believe it was not accidental. Someone intentionally committed arson to destroy all traces. In addition, the next day, unknown persons poured concrete on the place where Buenova's Mitsubishi with 3 passengers was supposedly located. One thing is clear. The case is covered with mystery, and someone deliberately prevents its disclosure. Why did the search stop? By April 17th, hundreds of volunteers combed Domo Strait, Illinois Naya Street, and the entire industrial zone, abandoned buildings, ravines and woodlands, hills and wastelands. Conducting searches in the water area of the river turned out to be problematic, as at that time the ice drift began. However, as much as possible, the search operation was carried out. At that moment, more than 2,000 leaflets were distributed all over Ulan-Ude. A huge number of people were questioned. However, as soon as concerned citizens from other regions started heading to the city, the search group Liza Alert announced the suspension of its activities. In their post on the social network, the leadership explained that their headquarters had done a tremendous amount of work in 5 days. "We do not finish our work," the text read. The search for Saseg and Stanislav continues. "We are waiting for new evidence, ready to process it and go on autonomous tasks." During this time, several other items have been found in the investigation area that could conceivably belong to Saseg. Among them, women's boots, an e-cigarette, and a hat. However, at the moment of the finds, only a man's jacket with documents and keys have been officially confirmed. Apparently, the other things have nothing to do with the case or information about them is not disclosed. Volunteers noted that there is a lot of garbage and miscellaneous junk on the vacant lot, which makes the inspection much more difficult. The search for Sezagbanova and Stanislav Norboev continues to this day, but by relatives. The relatives of the missing have joined their efforts, despite the suspicions that have arisen about Stanislav. Families and their acquaintances take to the streets after working hours and on weekends. There are about 10 of us. Strangers are calling, interested in the results, worried, offering help. Now law enforcers, family and friends are doing it. Of course, we would like to once again gather volunteers and walk the place. The children are waiting for their mom. They don't know what happened. So far we have told them that mom has left, shared Svetlana Mitopova, Seseg's aunt. Nina Nerbieva said that she feels that her son is alive. The woman stated that she would believe it until she was convinced otherwise. The silence was interrupted. It is striking that after the public outcry, there is a sharp silence. People are perplexed and speculate why the Liza Alert Squad, after finding important leads, quickly called off the search. And afterward, they closed comments to posts about CSAG, explaining it with ethical considerations. In the first week, hundreds of people dropped what they were doing and took to the streets in search of the missing. Understandably, they were extremely outraged and waited for some kind of explanation. Finally, on May 29th, the authorities broke the silence and made an official statement. They reported that murder is being considered as the main version. The suspect is the person who got into Seseg's car near the shopping center. Work is underway to improve the quality of the video footage to identify the person. Otherwise, investigative, operative search and search activities continue in the criminal case. Evidence in the case. Thus, at this point in the case of Seseg and Stanislav's disappearance, there are the following official leads. First, the items found in the vacant lot, Norboev's jacket, keys, and driver's license. The second lead is other items, the identity of which is not known. The third clue is a large blood stain found there. The fourth lead is a woman's car left in the yard with no license plates and bloodstains. The fifth clue is the CCTV footage, which shows the route of the Mitsubishi on the night of April 11th, 12. And finally, the sixth lead is the testimony of witnesses and eyewitnesses. Forensic and genomic tests are being conducted on the available evidence. No further information is available. Versions. The main theory is murder. The first person who comes to mind is Boris Binov. He may well have been involved in the massacre, and the infidelity of his wife could be the motive for the crime. But this is just speculation. Seseg's relatives reported that they did not find any compromising correspondence in Seseg's computer. Boris admitted that he had been questioned by investigators more than once and passed a polygraph. At the same time, many circumstances raised doubts. First of all, Boris's work in law enforcement agencies in the past. We remember that the unknown man showed his service ID and could well be a former colleague of the suspect. Secondly, Binov's strange business trip on the day of his wife's disappearance, 1,500 miles away. It is as if he took care of his alibi in advance. The second issue is the questionable nature of the trip itself regarding the capture of stray dogs, especially over such a long distance. Thirdly, Vujnova's expensive automobile was not destroyed, and after all, it is a jointly acquired property, and in case of what it will always be able to dispose of the second spouse. The second version is kidnapping. Allegedly, Stanislav fell so much in love with a woman who did not reciprocate that he stole her. However, this raises many questions. Who was the third person in the car, and for what purpose? Is Seseg alive at this point? And if so, where is she? The next theory is a criminal showdown over debts. It is possible that at one time the woman sought financial help from people with a criminal lifestyle, perhaps to build a business or maybe in preparation for a beauty pageant. When the time came to pay off her debts, something went wrong. This might explain why Seseg chose to work part-time as a cab driver. On the day she went missing, she also requested money from her husband, likely a small amount, suggesting she may have been trying to gather funds for a particular need. This could clarify why Stanislav was with her. Perhaps she hadn't disclosed her situation to Boris and invited the athlete along for protection. If that were the case, harming them wouldn't make logical sense, especially since a creditor would typically prefer the debtor to repay the loan, even if late. The fourth theory is more straightforward, though still plausible. It's possible that Seseg and Stanislav picked up a dangerous passenger, particularly concerning given that Seseg gained widespread attention following the Mrs. Beryasha 2024 pageant. The perpetrator might have been an obsessed admirer who acted on a twisted fantasy. There's also yet another version of events to consider. Could it be that the two lovers simply chose to disappear and staged a crime to vanish without a trace? While intriguing, this theory seems improbable. Sezgin had children she deeply loved and would likely never leave behind. Similarly, Stanislav had close family, his mother and sister, making it unlikely he would willingly put them through such pain. Few people are willing to build a new life at the cost of their loved one's suffering. Clearly, many theories surround this mysterious case. Perhaps, with time, more details will emerge in the disappearance of Buinova and Norboev. Yet there's also a chance the truth may remain forever hidden. Still, this investigation has brought us a step closer to understanding what might have happened. What do you believe led to the tragic events of that April night in Ulan-Ude? Moving on to the next case. Christine Johnson. Until investigators uncovered a hidden detail that changed everything. What really happened to Christine Johnson? Let's take a closer look. In surveillance footage recorded in Los Angeles on February 15, 2003, Christine, just 21 years old, can be seen wearing a black hat. It looks like an ordinary day of shopping at the mall, but what's captured in the video is far more unsettling. Just hours later, Christine vanished without a trace. What she purchased that day may hold clues to her disappearance. Police reviewed her phone records and discovered that she had called a helpline from Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills shortly after 5 p.m. A witness claimed that a woman resembling Christine had pulled over to ask for directions to a home further up the hill. But beyond that, investigators found no additional leads. Then, on February 20th, 5 days after she disappeared, Christine's case was featured in a newspaper article. That same day, a woman contacted the police. The woman told police that a man had approached her at the same mall just a few weeks earlier. He claimed he was involved in casting for the next James Bond film and invited her to audition. This tip led detectives to uncover the disturbing pattern of a serial predator who had been targeting women in Hollywood for over a decade. Their investigation revealed multiple accounts from women with eerily similar experiences. In 2001, Christine Johnson was 20 years old when she left her small hometown of Saugatuck, Michigan, for Southern California, hoping to make it big in Hollywood. While pursuing her dream, she also worked hard to complete her education. Despite her efforts, breaking into the film industry proved difficult, and at one point, she even considered moving back home. Still, Christine didn't give up. She landed a job as a production assistant on a new movie, but consistent work in the industry remained elusive. Eventually, she took a job at a cell phone company to make ends meet, but her passion for a Hollywood career never faded. On Saturday, February 15, 2003, Christine spoke with her mother, Terry, over the phone. Christine mentioned she was heading to the mall that day, and her mom encouraged her to buy herself a Valentine's Day gift. After saying goodbye, Christine left to go shopping. By February 17th, Terry became increasingly worried. She was used to speaking with Christine daily, but hadn't heard from her in over 48 hours. When she couldn't reach her by phone, she called Christine's workplace, only to learn that her daughter hadn't shown up that morning. Christine was always punctual and dependable, so her parents feared something was seriously wrong. They immediately reported her missing and flew to Los Angeles to join the search. Police launched an investigation and established a tip line to gather leads. As the case gained public attention, detectives discovered through her credit card records that Christine had made several purchases at the Westfield Century City Mall on February 15th. Surveillance footage confirmed that Christine was at the mall around 1 p.m. on February 15th. However, the video offered no clear clues about what happened afterward. Investigators then turned their attention to Christine's roommate, hoping she might know more about Christine's movements that day. According to her roommate, Christine had returned home briefly after shopping and proudly showed off a new outfit she had purchased. She then left again, saying she had an important movie audition to attend. For the first time, police had a possible destination, but unfortunately, the roommate couldn't recall the name or location of the audition. Investigators reviewed Christine's phone records and discovered she had made a call to a helpline from the Laurel Canyon area of the Hollywood Hills shortly after 5 p.m. on the same day. A witness also came forward, reporting that a woman matching Christine's description, driving a white Miata, had stopped to ask for directions to a house up in the hills shortly before she disappeared. With new details emerging about the day Christine vanished, her parents began to fear that someone she knew may have been involved in harming her. Desperate for answers, they did everything in their power to aid the search for their daughter. Meanwhile, police brought in Christine's ex-boyfriend for questioning. He admitted there had been domestic abuse during their relationship, but insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He also claimed he wasn't in town on the day she went missing, and several witnesses confirmed his alibi. After verifying his story, investigators determined it was yet another dead end. Then, on February 20th, 2003, 5 days after Christine went missing, a woman named Susan Murphy contacted police. She had read in the newspaper that Christine had disappeared after going to a movie audition. Hoping to help, Susan shared details about a man she had recently encountered. He, too, had invited her to an audition under suspicious circumstances. As she recounted her experience, Detective Virginia Obenchain realized this could be their first major break in the case. Interestingly, news reports hadn't mentioned what Christine had purchased at the mall, but when Susan read the article, she immediately suspected that the man she had met might be linked to Christine's disappearance. As soon as Susan tells the cops that she thinks she met the same man, they ask her to remember everything she could about him. She helps make a composite sketch of what he looks like, which is shown on TV all over the country. February 24th, 9 days after Christy went missing, her car was found in a hotel's valet parking lot. The police told Christy's parents right away, and they were scared. But the only thing they find in the car is Christy's cell phone. The valet told the cops that the car was brought in by a man on February 16th, the day after she died, February 27th, 12 days after Christy went missing. People haven't seen her since then, but her family won't give up. One vigil is held in Los Angeles in honor of Christy, and the other is held in Michigan. As word gets out, along with the picture that Susan Murphy helped make, other women come forward with similar stories in the hopes that they can help find Christy. Liz Bozzini met a man at a restaurant in 1991, 12 years before she went missing. He told her about a job opening in a new James Bond movie. While they were sitting at the bar together, Elizabeth saw right away that something wasn't right. She saw white powder on top of her drink when she looked at it. She quickly called the restaurant boss while she was in the bathroom. She came up with a plan and went back to the bar to try to hold him up until the cops arrived. She asked him what the white powder was as they talked some more. He said it was sugar. Elizabeth tried to trade drinks with him by telling him he could have hers instead. Before the police came, the man ran away. But when Elizabeth hears about what happened to Christy, more than 10 years later, she thinks it was the same man. Christine Klugian is one of the women who have told the police stories that sound a lot like hers. She says that in 1989, she met a man who said his name was John Maroney. After a few weeks of talking, he asked her to go on a date. The man told her that the party would be in a hotel room, and that he worked for Columbia Records. After dinner, they took a car back to the hotel. But when they got off the lift, Christine Klugian realized that the hall was empty. She was getting scared because she couldn't hear anything that sounded like a party nearby. Right then, the man led her to a hotel room that was empty, and she knew what he was up to the whole time. The man tied her up with ropes that he pulled out from behind the bed, but she got away and ran out of the hotel room to get help. A man named Victor Paleologos was caught trying to. He agreed to a plea deal and was given probation for 3 years. After 14 years, cops are still desperately looking for Christy Johnson. After seeing the sketch of the man they're looking for, a parole officer calls in. Victor Paleologos, one of her parolees, looks like it, she says. The police get a warrant to search his home. Men wearing the same kind of clothes that Christy bought the day she went missing are shown on his computer. The suspect also told Susan Murphy to wear the same outfit to an interview. The trend is becoming more clear now. When investigators go to find Paleologos, they find that he is already in jail on separate charges for trying to steal a car. Paleologos is still being questioned by detectives, but he won't say anything about Christy's departure. He also has an excuse for the day she disappeared. The friend he said he met confirmed that they did eat together. Even though Paleologos has a good excuse, he is still a major suspect in the case. Paleologos didn't go to IHOP until hours after Christy was last seen, around 5:30 p.m. on February 15th. He had a lot of time between those events to hurt her. Police asked Susan Murphy to name the guy who approached her in a lineup 16 days after Christy went missing. Susan figures out who Victor Paleologos is. There are still hopes that authorities will be able to find Christy, But Detective Obanchain gets a call that changes the whole case as she walks Susan out of the police station. Folks on a walk found a dead body in a gorge not far from Hollywood Hills. When the police get there, they find the body of a young woman. Everyone's worst fears have come true after weeks of looking for Christy. The cops now have to break the sad news to her family. Her family is very sad. The autopsy reports show that Christy died from being strangled. Investigators have decided that she was killed. Now the cops have to find and punish the person who killed her. No progress has been made in figuring out who killed her, even though her body has been found. Because Victor Paleologos has been linked to several crimes and has been identified in a picture, he can be charged with killing Christy. But since there is no DNA evidence, the prosecutors will have to make a case against him based on other information. The trial began on July 13, 2006. People who have been harmed by Paleologos in the past have told us about his history as a repeat predator. Their stories could help us catch him and punish him. She is called to the stand to tell her story. For years before Christy went missing, in 1999, a guy talked to Kathy at the same mall. He said his name was Brian and that he worked for Disney. He told her that she would be great in a new James Bond movie that he was making. Before she left, Kathy asked the man for a business card because she knew that Disney didn't make the James Bond films. Kathy got in touch with a New York police officer, her father. He also told her not to meet the man again. He hadn't done anything wrong yet, and the cops couldn't help Kathy. She knew the man might be dangerous, but she went anyway to try to stop him from hurting someone else. For safety's sake, she brought a stuntman friend with her, but the man who invited her never showed up. Even though Kathy didn't get to stop him herself in 1999, she knew it was the same man who talked to her when she saw Victor Paleologos' picture on TV 4 years later in connection with Christie's case. She could speak to fight for justice. Heather Marr, another victim, tells the court about the time in 1998 when Paleologos tried to. He was caught and said he was sorry. He was freed on parole on January 20th, 2003, less than a month before Christy went missing. He had been in prison for 3 years and 5 months. In the 4 days after he got out on parole, he went after Susan Murphy. She stands up to witness against Paleologos and faces him again to help Christy's family move on with their lives. January 24th, 2003. She says she was at the Century City Mall, which is also where Christy was a few hours before she disappeared. A man came up to Susan and said his name was Victor Thomas. The man asked Susan to come to a test the next day. He seemed to know a lot about the business, but she thought there was something off about his offer. Susan called the Screen Actors Guild after she left to find out if there was a new James Bond movie being made. They told her there wasn't. There was no way she could be sure the man wasn't telling the truth, and she had no idea what he planned to do if they met again. But she chose to go anyway, in the hopes of stopping him. Susan went to meet the man again the next day with mace and a camera. Her boyfriend Tony stayed in the car and watched from inside. As they talked, he asked her if she wanted to get a drink across the street before the interview. The building he pointed to looked like it was empty. Susan showed her man where the car was by pointing. When the man saw that she wasn't alone, he changed his behavior right away. While the man was running away, Susan tried to stop him so he wouldn't hurt anyone else. Tony and she got in the car and chased after him. He was quickly found hiding in the trees around the corner. Susan wasn't hurt, but she thought the man might try to trick another young woman. She had no idea what he could do. When he met her, he didn't do anything wrong, so the cops couldn't do anything. After less than a month, Christy was last seen. Right now, Susan's story helps make it clear how Victor Paleologos behaved. 7 women bravely testified against him, facing the man who had been after them and has gotten away with crimes many times. Paleologos kept coming up with the same ideas. He told the women to buy the same clothes and used the promise of an interview that would make their careers possible to get them to fall for him. He took advantage of their hopes for their big break in Hollywood. The stories of the women are very important for making a strong case when put together, but since they don't have any DNA proof, they're still not sure if it's enough to find him guilty. Victor Paleologos takes a plea deal to avoid the death sentence because there is more and more evidence against him. But after that, he makes a shocking choice. He asks the court in an 11-page letter to change his mind about pleading guilty. Victor Paleologos was given a 25-year to life term on September 15, 2006, for the murder of Christine Johnson. The women recognized how closely Christine's story mirrored their own and found the strength to come forward together. Their bravery played a key role in exposing and capturing a serial predator who had been targeting young women in Hollywood for over a decade. Though they never knew Christine personally, their efforts to bring her killer to justice speak volumes about the impact her story had on them. Thanks to their courage, Christine's family was finally given answers and a measure of peace. These women continue to honor her memory, and today, they advocate for other survivors of assault. They speak out to remind the world that telling the truth can lead to real change, and that every survivor's voice matters in the ongoing fight for justice. Moving on to the next case. Joel Kirkpatrick. 10-year-old Joel was viciously attacked while sleeping in his bed, suffering 13 serious stab wounds, all while his mother was just in the next room. At first, she claimed she had no idea who could have done such a thing, or did she? As the investigation progressed, Julie Ray Harper emerged as the main suspect. There's a lot more to this case, so stay with us. Around 4:30 a.m., a panicked Julie rushed to her neighbors, saying a masked intruder had broken in, assaulted her, and taken Joel. Alarmed, the neighbors contacted the police right away. When officers arrived, they found signs of a break-in, including shattered glass and blood on the back door. A bloody knife was discovered in the hallway. Tragically, Joel was found in his bedroom, wedged between the wall and his bed. Though still clinging to life, he had suffered over a dozen critical injuries, including to major organs. Cuts on his hands revealed he had tried to defend himself. Paramedics arrived swiftly, but sadly, Joel could not be saved. The brutal attack sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone, especially Joel's mother, in deep anguish. Julie, who deeply loved her only son and often referred to him as her greatest blessing, was heartbroken. Eager to catch whoever was responsible, detectives launched their investigation right away. Julie told them she had been asleep when she was awakened by Joel's screams. Assuming he was having a nightmare, she went to check on him. But just as she neared his room, a masked man rushed out. A struggle followed, during which she was knocked to the floor. In a desperate attempt to stop him, she clung to his leg as he dragged her through the hallway. When the intruder reached the garage, he shattered the glass back door to escape, striking Julie one last time before disappearing. Under the glow of the streetlights, Julie claimed she briefly saw his face in profile. She described him as a young, short, slender man with dark hair, wearing dark pants, possibly a teenager. Despite her vivid account, police were unable to identify anyone fitting that description, leading them to suspect the attacker may have come from outside the area. In a close-knit town of fewer than 5,000 residents, a local suspect likely would have stood out. With little progress, rumors began to spread, and investigators turned their attention to a group of local high school troublemakers known for causing problems around town. One teenager falsely claimed that he and his friends had broken into Julie's house, but investigators quickly determined the story was fabricated, putting them back at square one. The following day, Julie suggested a disturbing possibility. Could Joel's father have been responsible? The couple had gone through a bitter divorce and custody battle, which had ended in Julie's favor. Could resentment over the outcome have driven him to commit such a horrific crime? Investigators looked into this theory, but quickly confirmed that Joel's father had a solid alibi. He was out of town with his new wife at the time of the murder. With that lead ruled out, attention began shifting toward Julie herself. Several elements from the crime scene raised red flags. When officers first arrived, Julie described the intruder as masked. But just 20 minutes later, she gave such a detailed description of his face that a sketch artist was able to draw him. Yet no mask was ever recovered from the scene. This inconsistency, along with other emerging clues, began to cast serious doubt on Julie's account. Then came another suspicious moment. Before being taken to the hospital, Julie unexpectedly asked whether a knife had been found. What made that odd was that she hadn't mentioned a weapon earlier, and at that point, she had no way of knowing Joel had been attacked with a knife. Julie also claimed she didn't even realize Joel was still in the house until she arrived at the hospital. Another odd detail was her immediate belief that the intruder had abducted her son, despite stating she never entered his room and was attacked just outside it. These inconsistencies began to raise serious doubts about her version of events. When rumors spread that Julie might have been involved in her son's death, it sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community and sharply divided public opinion. Police began to theorize that Julie may have fabricated the presence of an intruder, perhaps as a way to keep Joel away from his father permanently. Although she insisted all doors had been shut, there were no signs of forced entry on any windows, doors, or locks. The shattered glass on the back door had been broken from the inside, and a droplet of Joel's blood was discovered there, yet it revealed nothing about a possible assailant. Julie's description of her struggle with the attacker also came under scrutiny. While the hallway carpet did show minor disturbances, folds that matched her claim of being dragged, the rest of the scene was unusually undisturbed. A vase of flowers remained upright, and the framed pictures hanging on the walls hadn't been touched. The only parts of the house showing signs of disturbance were Joel's bedroom and the hallway. Another troubling clue was the weapon itself, a knife taken from Julie's own kitchen, deliberately left near Joel's room. There were no signs of unfamiliar footprints or blood trails inside or outside the house. In fact, when officers checked the backyard the following morning, the dew on the grass remained untouched, indicating no one had escaped that way. Julie's injuries also raised concerns. She had only minor scratches and bruises, which investigators suspected could have been self-inflicted. The level of detail she gave about each wound struck detectives as strange for someone allegedly involved in a chaotic struggle. Additionally, 3 drops of Joel's blood were found on her clothing. When questioned, Julie could only guess that the blood might have splattered during her confrontation with the attacker, an explanation that failed to convince police. As the evidence accumulated, suspicion continued to fall on Julie. But by the end of 1999, investigators learned she had sold her home more than a year earlier and vanished. No one, including her ex-husband, neighbors, or former colleagues, knew where she had gone. One detective recalled she had attended Indiana State University, and a search confirmed she had completed her degree. Further investigation revealed that Julie had relocated to Monroe County, where she had built a new life with a serious partner and a close circle of friends. The sale of her home and a life insurance payout following Joel's death had left her with over $500,000 in assets. This discovery left investigators questioning whether they had overlooked critical details, particularly about Julie's decision to abruptly leave Lawrenceville. The location where Julie Ray Harper chose to live after her son's burial raised eyebrows and added to the growing suspicions surrounding her. Adding to these doubts, her new life as a single woman seemed to offer her fresh opportunities, suggesting she had gained personally from her son's tragic death. Could this have been a motive for the crime? While there was no direct evidence linking Julie to the incident, the sheriff's department pieced together a reconstruction of the events for the prosecutor. According to their report, on October 13, 1997, at approximately 4:30 a.m., Julie allegedly armed herself with a kitchen knife and entered Joel's room while he was asleep. Acting in a state of agitation, she inflicted multiple stab wounds on him as he lay under the blanket. Joel, awakened by the attack, resisted fiercely, which led to a struggle that ended with both of them falling between the bed and the wall. His injuries indicated the attacker was not significantly stronger than him, suggesting the assault was impulsive rather than premeditated. The prosecutors believed Julie staged the crime scene afterward to mislead investigators. She reportedly placed the knife outside her son's room, broke the back door window, and inflicted superficial injuries on herself. However, these efforts only created inconsistencies in her account, ultimately leading detectives to conclude that Julie was the perpetrator. Despite these findings, Julie's family and friends steadfastly defended her, arguing that she would never harm her own child. However, in 2000, Julie Ray Harper was arrested. During the trial, her ex-husband testified against her, painting a picture of a less-than-ideal mother who allegedly never wanted their son. One piece of evidence presented by the prosecution was the significance of the date of the incident, October 13th. They argued that Julie had an obsession with the number 13. She was born on the 13th, insisted on having her wedding on the 13th, and even gave birth to Joel on July 13th after inducing labor. The attack on her son occurred on October 13th, when Joel was 10 years and 3 months old, and chillingly, he suffered exactly 13 stab wounds. On March 19, 2002, The court found Julie Ray Harper guilty and sentenced her to 65 years in prison, effectively a life sentence under Illinois law. Julie's family and friends felt they were witnessing a serious injustice. They thought that not only had Julie been wrongfully convicted, but the real criminal was still at large and could have committed another heinous crime. Prosecutors were certain they had found the right person guilty. Julie vehemently disputed her involvement in spite of the decision, claiming that the crime was committed by an unidentified masked intruder. If Julie's claims were true, she was living through a real-life nightmare. Though the case seemed resolved with a conviction and imprisonment, it was only the beginning. The media coverage caught the attention of a group of lawyers from the Innocence Project, an organization dedicated to investigating potential wrongful convictions, especially those involving claims of actual innocence. After reviewing Julie Ray Harper's case, they were stunned that she had been found guilty. They revisited overlooked details and explored new angles, which soon bore fruit. The very next day, a new witness came forward to the sheriff's office. Initially, the sheriff showed little interest, as the case was already closed. However, when the man claimed to have interacted with the real perpetrator, the police decided to listen. The witness, Alan Berkshire, recounted an unsettling incident 2 days before Joel Kirkpatrick's murder. While dining with his wife and 11-year-old son at a local copyright, a man approached the arcade games where his son, Randy, was playing. The man, who appeared to be in his 30s, about 5 feet 9 inches or 5 feet 10 inches, and weighing 150 to 155 pounds, placed a hand on Randy's shoulder and ominously said, "You're scared of me, aren't you? Maybe you should be. Maybe everyone should be terrified when I show up." Alan described the man as disheveled, possibly intoxicated and unfamiliar to the area. After the cafe incident, Alan immediately reported it to the local sheriff's department when he learned of Joel's murder, but his account was dismissed as insignificant. Innocence Project investigators found yet another witness, a cashier, at a bus station less than 40 miles from Lawrenceville. She recalled that on Tuesday, October 14th, a man matching the suspect's description purchased a ticket to Nevada. This destination was rarely requested, making the transaction stand out. She described the man as drunk and unsettling, and his behavior left such an impression that she reported it to local law enforcement immediately. Unfortunately, the police dismissed her report as irrelevant. Further digging by the Innocence Project revealed even more overlooked evidence. The doctor who examined Julie in the emergency room was adamant that her injuries were inflicted by another person. Shockingly, the police had never interviewed the doctor or taken his professional opinion into account. Instead, they proceeded with their theory that Julie had staged the attack and inflicted the injuries on herself. The police also claimed there were no signs of an intruder in Julie's home, but private detectives suggested this was because they simply hadn't been properly searched for. Crucially, no fingerprints were taken from the house, nor were the fibers on Joel's bedsheets analyzed. Additionally, the officer, who initially reported no dew on the grass, had misinterpreted the conditions. There was no dew at all that morning, contradicting his earlier assumptions. The Innocence Project raised these glaring oversights in court and in the media, sparking renewed national attention. Television networks highlighted the case, questioning the evidence against Julie and asking, "Isn't it strange that this woman is still behind bars?" The story took on a new life, offering the public a perspective that casts serious doubt on the original investigation. When all physical evidence pointed to Julie Ray Harper's innocence, the case garnered the attention of American writer Diane Fanning. After thoroughly reviewing the evidence, Fanning became convinced that Julie had been wrongfully convicted. Julie found an unexpected ally in Diane, who noticed striking similarities between the handwriting of Joel Kirkpatrick's attacker and that of Tommy Lynn Sells. A convicted serial killer, Fanning was researching for her new book. Fanning decided to write to Sells in prison, referencing Joel's case indirectly. In her letter she noted, "I watched a program where the prosecutor said, 'No one breaks into a home just to attack a child without bringing their own knife.' But we know that's not true, right?" Sells's reply was cryptic, but chilling. He responded, "Did that crime maybe happen a couple of days before the one I committed in Springfield, Missouri? Did it maybe happen on the 13th of the month?" At the time, Sells had no access to media in prison and could not have learned these case details from outside sources. Fanning interpreted his words as a confession. Tommy Lynn Sells had a documented history of violent crimes spanning nearly 2 decades, during which he traveled across the U.S., leaving a trail of victims. He was arrested in Del Rio, Texas, for a heinous crime committed on December 31, 1999. On that night, Sells broke into a home around 4 a.m., attacking 2 young girls while their parents slept nearby. The attack bore eerie similarities to Joel Kirkpatrick's case, but in Texas, one of the girls survived and identified Sells, leading to his arrest. This prompted Fanning to suspect that Joel might have been another of Sells' victims. Reports indicated that Sells was involved in at least 21 attacks, and Joel could have been the 22nd. Further investigation revealed that Sells had been in the vicinity of Lawrenceville at the time of Joel's murder, verified through the National Crime Information Center. A Texas Ranger, assigned to Sells' cases, reached out to detectives handling Joel's case, but they showed no interest. The local sheriff's department dismissed this connection, as they had already closed the case by convicting Julie Ray Harper. Despite Diane Fanning presenting her findings, investigators refused to engage with her or consider the new evidence. Unperturbed, Fanning published her book, which became an unexpected sensation. The detailed revelations reignited public support for Julie, with many demanding a retrial featuring unbiased jurors who would weigh the new evidence. However, despite compelling links to a serial killer whose modus operandi matched the crime and who had been confirmed to be near Lawrenceville, the prosecutor dismissed the idea, saying, "I just don't believe in fairy tales." Prosecutors argued that Seals had somehow learned about the case's details while in prison. The Innocence Project's lawyers countered, emphasizing that prisoners had no access to television or the internet, but their arguments were ignored. They pressed on, uncovering even more evidence. Sells had been arrested shortly after Joel's murder for a traffic violation, during which his driver's license was confiscated. A comparison between his license photo and the composite sketch of the attacker revealed a striking resemblance. When the photo was shown to Alan Berkshire, the CAFA copyright witness, confirmed Sells as the man he had seen with his son. With this mounting evidence, it became increasingly apparent that the wrong person might have been convicted for Joel Kirkpatrick's tragic death. Julie Ray Harper's lawyers successfully petitioned the court for a review of her case, which led a pivotal trial. During the proceedings, a recording of Tommy Lynn Sells' confession was presented. In his statement, Sells detailed how, at around 4 a.m., he entered Julie Ray's home through an unlocked kitchen door. He described taking a knife, attacking Joel in his room, and struggling with Julie as he attempted to flee. This account aligned precisely with the events Julie had previously described. After the crime, Sells claimed he hitchhiked to a bus station, purchased a ticket to Winoka, and returned to where he was living at the time. He stated that his actions were in retaliation for a conflict he had with the homeowner at a local store the day before. However, the prosecution began to cast doubt on the credibility of Sells. The first red flag was the lack of evidence supporting the alleged conflict. Julie Ray had never mentioned any dispute with anyone in the 5 years following the incident, despite being extensively questioned. It wasn't until 2002, during a conversation with author Diane Fanning, that Julie suddenly recalled the alleged struggle with the intruder, an unexpected memory that cast doubt on its reliability. Further skepticism surrounded Tommy Lynn Sells' claim that he had entered the house through unlocked kitchen doors. Julie had previously and consistently testified that she had personally locked all windows and doors on the night of October 12, 1997. Yet after speaking with the writer, her account subtly shifted, introducing new uncertainties. During the trial, on a Wednesday morning, the court revisited Julie Ray Harper's case. When the prosecutor spoke the word intent, Julie, overwhelmed with emotion, let out a scream and collapsed unconscious in the courtroom. Despite the unfolding drama, the prosecution remained firm in its stance, asserting that, no matter the jury's verdict, Julie's hands would forever be stained with her son's blood. Tommy Lynn Sells spent 4 years incarcerated at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville before his execution was carried out on April 3, 2014. Julie Ray Harper later received $87,500 in compensation. Moving on to the next case. Olof Baum. Olof Baum was born in January 1927 in Stockholm, Sweden. A bright and curious child, He quickly became fluent in both German and English. In 1945, he enlisted in the army and served for several years, during which he traveled extensively. These travels played a significant role in shaping his strong political beliefs. Olaf aligned himself with social democratic ideals and became increasingly vocal about his leftist views. In 1982, Olaf was elected Prime Minister of Sweden. His outspoken stance and progressive policies made him a polarizing figure, earning him both staunch supporters and powerful enemies. On the night of February 28, 1986, while walking home from the cinema in Stockholm with his wife, Lisbeth Baum, Olaf was shot in the back at close range. A second bullet grazed Lisbeth, but she survived. Medics quickly arrived and rushed Olaf to Sebedsberg Hospital, but tragically, he succumbed to his injuries. Despite the attack taking place on a busy street, no witnesses were able to clearly identify the shooter. Over the following years, investigators pursued various leads, but none resulted in a definitive suspect. In 1989, Christer Peterson was arrested and convicted after Lisbeth identified him in a police lineup. However, the conviction was overturned on appeal, and Peterson was released due to lack of evidence. Then, on June 10, 2020, Swedish prosecutors publicly announced that they had identified the person responsible for Olof Baum's assassination. They named him Ostic Engstraparagraf M, also known as Skandia Man. Engstraparagraf M was one of about 20 people who had claimed to witness Olaf getting shot. He worked as a graphic designer for Skandia Insurance Company, located near the crime scene. In the initial investigation, Engstraparagraf M told investigators that he actually tried to resuscitate Olaf. During the most recent investigation, it was found that he lied. However, it does not necessarily mean anything, but it was noted that Engstraparagraf M had very different political views than Olaf. He was later identified as a possible suspect by Swedish writers Lars Larsson and Thomas Peterson. Engstraparagraf M took his own life back in 2000, so it is not really known why Swedish prosecutors now feel so confident it was him. Nevertheless, they have closed the case and consider it to be solved. It took 34 years, 10,000 interviews, and 134 confessions before this case was solved. A lot of people are not happy about the conclusion that the Swedish prosecutors made. They do not believe there is enough evidence to be certain Ingram is guilty. The investigators made a lot of mistakes during the investigation, and the fact that took 34 years for them to solve. Such a highly publicized case might have influenced their decision that in many instances where media and public pressure push investigators to close a case quickly, errors can occur. Since Engström is no longer alive, the full truth of what happened may never be known. For now, though, the case is officially considered solved. Moving on to the next case. Tanya Nicole Cash. Tanya Nicole Cash was born on October 14, 1981, in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. Her early life was difficult, marked by financial hardship within her family. In 1996, while attending Cornell Middle School at the age of 14, Tanya developed a friendship with Thomas Hose, the school's security guard, who was more than twice her age. He was well liked by students, especially the girls, and had a certain charisma that made him stand out. Thomas frequently pulled Tanya out of class to talk, and eventually, after catching her skipping, he kissed her. This marked the beginning of a disturbing relationship. Over time, Thomas manipulated Tanya into running away from home and moving in with him. Because she had a history of running away, her family didn't report her missing until a week later. The police searched briefly, but soon gave up. Unbeknownst to anyone, Tanya was living in Thomas's home, which he shared with his parents and his son. He went to extreme lengths to keep her hidden, confining her to his bedroom and making her use a bucket instead of a bathroom. In 2000, Thomas introduced her to his family under the false name Nikki Allen, claiming she was his girlfriend and would be living with them. After that, she was occasionally allowed outside but had to follow a strict curfew. Eventually, Tanya realized the toxic nature of their relationship and decided to escape. On March 21, 2006, with the help of local grocery store owner Joe Sparico, she revealed her true identity. Joe contacted the police, who quickly arrested Thomas at his home. Tanya was 24 years old by then. Before his trial, Thomas was placed under house arrest, ironically echoing how he had once confined Tanya. He later attempted to harm himself and was sent to a mental health facility. In 2007, he pleaded guilty to the charges and received a prison sentence of 5 to 15 years. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing cold cases with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cold Case Mystique for more deep dives into cold case investigations. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any cases you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video, and remember, the search for truth never stops.